Good afternoon, Pule. This is Siki Langa from the Indigenous Languages Action Forum, and today we are hosting Pule Kajonoliji, who
Yeah,
is I discovered through the engagement with Begbe, which is a form of writing that's really the best way to write our Indigenous languages. But he's going to explain it better, and I want him to introduce himself. When I discovered this last year, I honestly felt like this is the best discovery ever. Most exciting thing I've come across when it comes to Indigenous languages. If you're thinking of something more exciting, please tell us. But over to you. Please introduce yourself. Is it Pule Gajanoliji?
Pule Orange, but I usually write it in different ways. I don't necessarily spell it the same way because at the end of the day, exactly like you're saying, this Latin alphabet is not the best for representing our languages. So I'm not so subject to it. I'd rather disregard it where possible. Okay, and like nakale we're talking Pule Orange, ngingumcwaningi wezilimi zesintu nezabathwa e-University yaseKapa futhi ngingumthuthukisi wezinhlelo zokubhala ze-Afrika jikelele. So my name is Pule Katsolenj. I'm a researcher. I'm currently at the University of Cape Town completing my studies, and I'm a general and an activist and an advocate of the writing systems of the continent, including the most local ones of Dite Matsadinoko, Ispekle, Sohlamvu, but all indigenous writing systems of the continent is an advocacy project that I always am quite vocal and try to create a dialogue in many places around the country and around the world. So
Okay,
thank you very
Pule,
much.
ndicela ucacise uthi xa ufunda ntoni? Uthi ufunda ntoni?
Ndiyafunda e-UCT, ndifunda i-linguistics, yabo.
Linguistics
So
zonke.
yes, so linguistics, of course, is the science of language. So it's not about languages, it's about the language as a whole in general. And so you have to have knowledge of all language in the world if you want to do linguistics. I've studied linguistics for a long time. I'm an artist actually primarily, but I'm a researcher as well, and I study linguistics, and I'm completing my postgraduate studies in linguistics at UCT now.
All right. Well, I like this, the combination of art and language,
That's
which
right,
is
yeah.
primarily how we communicated, I think, through art as a means of our communication, it's a language, right?
That's right. That's why sithi ubuciko bomlomo. That's a way of explaining oratory arts.
Mm.
Bomlomo. So here on this first slide, you can actually see we've got ubuciko bokuloba. So we've said the arts of symbolic objects. So
Yes.
ukuloba is another word for ukubhala, but ukuloba has a broader sense in that it means to fashion symbolic objects, whether it may be beadwork, whether it be basketry, whether it may be typing on a computer, whether it may be writing, whether it may be creating any sort of mark that has a symbolic function. We could say that that's ukuloba. And uktibo, of course, we would usually translate it as arts, but also crafts, but also ingenuity in general. So I often like to say the ingenuity of writing.
So could you
Oh,
then introducing us to
okay,
Isibete and
wonderful.
how you came across it, what made you an
Yeah.
advocate for it?
Okay, great. So I'm just going to go through a presentation, and if ever you have a question or comment, please just interject. I think it's nice when it's a dialogue, and I'll try to go quite fast because it's
Yes.
usually quite a long presentation, but I'm going to try to cut it down. So I'll go quite fast, and I'm sure that everyone who's watching can be able to keep up. So I usually start by just showing a little video here by the artist Sandile Khatebe, who here's a sketch of his where he's writing with this paper, Sohlamvu, and the words say Siyakumbula is written there. And this ended up being a graffiti piece. So I always start by saying, let's take it back. In that video, there says, let's take it back. And of course, maybe you're familiar with this symbol. It's the Adinkra symbol, Sankofa,
Yes,
which
yes.
literally, Sankofa, yeah. Of course, this Adinkra symbol is very famous. and even the famous movie by the name Sankofa. And Sankofa is literally return, go and get it. So it's the
Return,
idea
go and
of,
get it.
yeah, Sankofa,
Go and
return
get
and
it.
get it. So, which we could say in our terms as Buyelembo. We say
Mm.
Buyelembo. So
Or
that's a similar
Omsaki's
thing.
version of Fetch Your Life.
Mm. Fetch your life from the ancients, fetch your life from the shoulders of giants, as we might say, because there is a great tradition here that has
Yes,
already been elucidated to a very high level, and we just need to fetch it and bring it into the future.
that's right.
So that's kind of it's the African futurist idea that we have certain traditions that are powerful, and we can just take them into the future.
So
I
good.
always start by showing this map, and I just ask people, what do you notice about this map?
That we're on top.
Yeah, I love the way you framed it. We're on top because so most people will say, "Oh, it's upside down," but then I always say, "Well, it's the right side up because we are in the south. Why should we put ourselves on the bottom? We're in the south. Let's put ourselves on the top. It doesn't change. The south is still the south. It's just on the direction on the top. And in different times and different places, we had different directions on top. So, for example, this is an ancient Roman map from like 2,000 years ago. And they put the east on top because they were focusing towards the east. They were
Hmm.
orienting themselves towards the Orient.
Wow,
So that's where we get
that's
the word
good.
Orient as well. And
Wow,
then
wow.
an Arabic map from about 1,000 years ago. So, the south there is clearly on the top. And you see the Arabian Peninsula there. And of course, it makes sense to put the south at the top because, when you're sailing from this region of the world, you have to go south in order to leave. So it makes very much sense that the south would be on the top. The point of this is just a convention to put the north on the top. And we just have to ask the question, does this convention serve us? So I
Hmm.
usually like to put the map with the south at the top because we are using a map to reorient ourselves in a way, and
Hmm.
we're reorienting towards a south-centric perspective, a
Yes.
global south up perspective in a way.
Oh,
Then I
may I,
always
may I
ask
ask
them,
may I ask a question about that? I see here that you've got various writing methods around the map, and each
mhm,
area has its unique writing. So, does this represent also how the various languages are written in this map?
yeah, yes. So the maps that I've shown are, of course, the Africa maps that I've shown, of course, are maps which give some, not all, of the indigenous writing systems of the continent. So this is just a selection. So it's a selection so we can see the broad geography of all the different systems, right? And some of them are very ancient and some of them are quite modern, but they're all coming from an indigenous source. They're all inside source and endogenous,
Okay,
developed inside rather than outside. So
that's
in
good.
the top
So,
we've got Xpeke, yeah, then we've got
mm,
Chimbire from Zimbabwe, and then we've got Mwego from Malawi, and we've got Sona from Angola, and then we've got Mandombe from Congo, and then we've got